thank you, Abner, for inviting us here today. It's always good to, yeah, absolutely. A lot of construction on 225 coming up through.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you gotta come early now.
Yeah, that's probably the problem.
We went through when there was some of the signs up.
Oh, yeah? I got caught behind the gate now.
I thought they were working all night.
No, they were putting signs up this morning.
Yeah, well, Abner asked me to come today to speak on behalf of what's happening in Vermont. I know there's a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers, but I can hopefully at least shed some light on some of the issues. I gotta say that my involvement came much in part due to Abner enlightening Dieter Craig, or vice versa. I'm not sure how all that happened, but just to give a little bit of history, January was really my beginning times of being involved in this whole case, only because Jonathan Harr reached out to the dairy farming community and said, I can't do this alone. We need dairy producers to represent your own wishes. And I figured, well, you know, we got to take them seriously. So I then had just represented my interest as a farm. January 29th at the hearing, went and spoke on behalf of how I felt DFA has affected our milk price, or my milk price. Came home, and I was surprised that National Dairy Producers Organization, Allied Milk Producers, and even dairy pricing supported the efforts of speaking out against organizations such as DFA and calling for transparency, to the point where Allied even paid my way to go. And Allied has a portion of of course you all know about the 10 cents. Allied also has a 1 cent portion. So there are those members that are 1 cent members, and that money, the government has no say on how it's used. So those dollars can go to fund anything, even sending somebody to Washington, D.C. or the state of Vermont to speak on behalf of dairy farmers. So John can explain more about that later. John knows a lot of information on Allied. But for those of you that are 10 cent members, I encourage you to also be 1 cent members because of that reason. It gives us opportunity to then speak our voice and be able to do it without asking the government for permission. 10 cents, with the 10 cents of Allied, you can't do anything like that. It has to be strictly promotion of milk. But the 1 cent, you can do anything. I'm going again here in August 7th. I'll be representing National Dairy Producers up there in Vermont and speaking on behalf of the interest of dairy producers. So just to give you a little bit of history, last July, this was supposed to go to trial, DFA, dairy farmers versus DFA. The 11 o'clock hour, DFA came in with a settlement deal of $50 million, and it never went to trial. January 29th, the court held a hearing, which I attended, and that was what Jonathan Harr had asked us to do from the Farm Shine. You remember that? He was asking for help from producers. So January 29th, this past January, was when dairy producers had come. March 31st, the judge said, I'm listening to the farmers, I'm throwing out the deal. $50 million is not enough. That only equates to less than $4,000 per dairy farmer. In the meantime, Jonathan Harr and the other plaintiffs had realized that their lawyers that they currently have are not acting in the best interest of the dairy producers. And they tried to remove them. They have actually sent letters to the judge. The judge actually allowed them to have a hearing. It started out to just be a morning hearing for 3 hours. That 3 hours turned into all day, which was on April 20th. At the end of the day, she said, well, obviously you guys aren't done speaking, so how about we reschedule another 3-hour morning meeting? Well, in June 1st, that 3-hour morning meeting turned into an all-day meeting. So, all to say, what was intended never really to happen was to remove our current lawyers. It ended up taking 2 days. Now, with all that said, unfortunately, the judge came back and said, you've had a good argument, you have good reasons to want to dismiss your lawyers, but according to the law, I can't grant your wishes. You're stuck with your lawyers. You got to work with them. And that's where we are at this point. We have lawyers that claim to represent us. We're convinced they're working with DFA, no proof. But it's hard to win a case when your own lawyers seem to be seeking DFA's advice for a settlement deal. I'm not discouraged. Jonathan Haar and Claudia and the Swantac and the Sitz, the main lead plaintiffs in the case, are not discouraged. They've just written a letter yesterday to their lawyers and stating that you will represent us because we are the class and we have petitions to prove it. And there's a petition here. I'm assuming, Amos, you brought it? Sign it. If you want your voice to be heard and you want you as a dairy producer to be able to be recognized on behalf of the class, which is us, we're all the class, this is what speaks volumes, because not only will this go to our lawyers to prove a point that there's real people behind this, it will also go to the judge. And the judge looks at that and obviously from past influence we have proof, because based upon what we did in petitions before, the settlement was denied. We continue to do petitions like that, and there's a very good chance that we will have a favorable outcome. I can't guarantee what that will look like, but what we're seeking at this point, it's not about the money, as much as some of the money would be nice, but really what it truly comes down to is DFA has got to be fixed. They cannot continue this manipulation that they have done in the markets with consolidation, antitrust issues. And because of it, and because of their actions, it's become very detrimental to Try to Dairy Farm ever since the beginning of 1998 when they were established. They began their behavior in 2002, according to the court, and 2014, so that's the time frame window, 02 to 14. So if you farmed anywhere between 2002 and 2014, and you shipped Federal Order 1 milk, fluid milk, into Federal Order 1, you will be considered part of the class. Only if you opt out would you then not be considered part of the class.
Unless you're not in the Northeast District.
You've got to be in Federal Order 1.
You guys ain't. You guys ain't in the Northeast District.
If you haven't been getting anything in the mail from your cooperative stating how much milk you've produced, you're most likely not in Federal Order 1, unless you're independent. But if you're part of a cooperative.
You have to do anything to opt out.
Yes. And I think the opt-out period's over.
Okay. I remember getting a paper where you could get in, but I didn't sign that.
I didn't either. But you're automatically in. That's the way it works. Everyone's in. There was an opt-out period, and then there was a period which was, when was that? December, they were allowing you to, it was up until May, I believe, you could sign up, May 30th.
Somewhere in there they had a
They extended it to May 30th for the deadline. And here's the bad thing. I never signed, but a lot of people had, and I don't blame them for doing it. Simply because it wasn't really going to hurt to sign it.
But the signing was to agree to the settlement.
Exactly. So you know what they're doing? The lawyers are using those that signed as a reason to reinstate the old settlement. Because now they have 7,200 signatures from dairy farmers saying, I want the money when this settles. It means nothing about wanting the settlement to go through. It just simply says, when you guys decide to hand out money, I'm standing in line to get my 4,000, even though it is piddly. It's really all it means, but they're taking it one step further and saying, these farmers are on our side.
Tell them about the farmer in the south that got 90,000,
Yeah.
150 cows, and regretted it.
Yep, 90,000 is what he received from the Southeast case, and personally 90,000. And
Yeah.
to me, that's a lot of money. Like, that would be a decent settlement, I would think. But even he is now saying he would give it all back if in exchange the problem would be fixed and DFA would no longer be able to do the anti-competitive behavior that they're continuing to do. So what he's saying by making that statement is, guys, don't take the settlement, it's not worth it. because your future is more important. The ability to be able to produce milk in the future and get a profitable price for that milk is more important than the cash payout.
Their push is against the small farmers, and that's what we gotta say.
Didn't he also make the remark that that 90,000 he got, DFA just figured out another way how to get it back? You know, if we don't do anything to expose them or to stop them or to fix the problem, whatever settlement they're gonna pay out, they will get back
Yeah.
in the manipulations that they do.
Well, see, DFA is so large that whatever they do, everyone has to follow. I've reached out to 2 cooperatives. I'm not going to say who they are. They agree with what we're doing. I said, if you agree, stand behind me. Let me take your name to the court and speak on behalf of you, or show up to the court. We can't do that. We have supply agreements with DFA. It could, it could be bad for us. They could retaliate. Everything we do, they're connected somehow. These co-ops under DFA, which have really no connection to DFA other than they're smaller than DFA, are scared.
They gotta play in the same playground.
So this is what we're up against as dairy farmers. It's up to us, guys. Our co-ops aren't going to speak for us. You got to speak for yourself. It's really what it comes down to, and it's no different with dairy pricing. You've got to continue to do things. Look for programs such as dairy pricing. I'm convinced that we as dairy producers are in this on our own. And if we want to have a remedy in this nation, it's not going to come through government, as Robin has said and Tom has said. It's going to come from dairy farmers banding together. And dairy pricing gives you that option. So I'm going to pass this around if you guys want to read it. You may have seen this before. This is what I had written to the court on January 29th. This is the letter to the court on behalf of National Dairy that I had written and submitted. Well, the board actually wrote this letter. And then this would be the